Welcome to the Tech on Toast podcast. My name is Chris Fletcher and I'm your host. Tech on Toast simplifies the way you buy and manage your hospitality tech. Do you need help untangling your tech? Head to our website, techontoast.community, and grab yourself a free tech audit. Find your next tech solution on our marketplace, attend our events, or simply say hello. We're here to help support the industry into the next generation. This podcast is brought to you today by Square. Picture this, all the tools you need to run your business seamlessly managed under one roof. From point-of-sale software and hardware to payments, Square's first-party solution integrates it all into one single dashboard. Beyond that, Square also offers team and inventory management, gift cards, and tools that will help you drive loyalty programs and marketing campaigns. So in a nutshell, Square streamlines your operation by pulling everything together under one roof as a single source of truth, helping you save time. Whether you're running a restaurant, cafe, bakery, bar, pub, or club, Square helps you simplify the way you do business and take payments. Square is trusted by over 4 million businesses globally. Get 20% off Square with Tech on Toast off countertop hardware with promo code SQUAREUK20. Visit square.com to use the promo code or to request to speak to one of our sales team. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the next episode of the Tech on Toast podcast, and today I'm delighted to be joined. I'm going to get your name right now because I'm famous for getting these wrong. Felipe Diaz Sampa.
Okay, almost there.
There. What was wrong?
The Felipe.
Yeah, that's
Felipe the Spanish
Diaz
way of
Sampa.
saying it, yeah.
You are the general manager at Otter, my friend. How are you?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me here.
You are welcome. We had a slight tech hiccup this morning, but we're online and we're moving.
We're in the tech world. It always happens.
And everyone can hear your beautiful accent across the airwaves here.
Thanks,
Where are you from?
I'm from Colombia.
Felipe,
yeah. It's always an interesting Felipe. But yeah,
British people just call you
whatever
Phil.
it works. But yeah, I was born in Colombia.
Okay.
Lived there my whole life. But of course, I have a little bit of a story of going around some of the Commonwealth countries. Let's say I used to live in Australia as well for 3 years, and then came to the UK, and I've been here 5 years already.
Wow. It's been which part of Colombia are you from? I mean, I act like I know it all.
Been?
But but I know certain bits just from watching TV.
Yeah. I was born in the coast in Cartagena, which is a beautiful colonial city, but I was raised in the capital city in Bogota.
Wow, very cool.
Huge city, 10 million people, mountains 2,600 meters above sea level, so it's incredible.
And because you mentioned, you alluded to it there, and you travelled a bit since you've left there, and you've done quite a bit. Tell us a little bit about your backstory before we get into the product and talk about Otter.
Yeah, for sure. So I was the classic, started working in a bank kind of thing.
How was that?
Wasn't necessarily my biggest passion, for sure. So I was like finding my way, and one of those started like looking into ways of like how can I get out and experience the world, do another study. Look into other ways of like expanding my.
I find that interesting, right? Because a lot of kids in the UK don't want to do that. They're kind of maybe they're a bit more privileged or whatever it might be. But you have because you really have that fire in your belly, right, to come and do something different.
Yeah, and of course, like I studied in a British school, so I had like the English, let's say, privilege of being able to go to the world and see what was going on there. And when I decided to do that leap of like, okay, I want to change my industry, started talking to some friends, and I went to Australia, to Sydney. I did a master's in commerce over there. Was a complete change for me. I was a student. I had no money.
Yes.
If you ask me what did you do there, I did everything that you can imagine in terms of works, and was knocking on doors, doing sales. Like I was doing everything that you can imagine in order to be able to keep myself alive while studying. And I think it was in 2016 that I met an Australian guy. I applied through LinkedIn, and this guy was Polish Australian, but he was living in Colombia, and he was for sure I'm gonna have a chat with this Colombian guy.
Yeah.
So I had a chat with him and said, hey, we're looking for an account manager for Deliveroo in Australia. I was okay. That's interesting. I really like restaurants. I had invested in a burger chain in Colombia with some friends. So I was kind of like getting into the whole scene of food and food tech. So I started that as a contractor over there in Australia, which was good. It was like an interesting role from 9 to 5 p.m. as an account manager, but I needed more money kind of thing.
Yes.
So I told him
a
like,
theme here.
yeah, it was tough times. And then I told him like, look, I can be a courier as well, right? So just let me do the thing from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. I'll do the courier stuff. So I went a bit. I was a courier every day from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Wow.
It was pretty cool, to be honest. It was one of the most.
I bet you, because you get close to the product, right? As in literally you're handling product, as in food.
Yeah.
And
So
I think it gives you insight that not many people will have, right?
from that part of the business, like I was handling the courier, like of course app. I was looking into ways of how to optimize my route. Like I was looking into ways how to get more orders being delivered. I was going to different parts of the city, that type of thing. So it was pretty interesting, and that actually like helped me a lot to really like get into the habit of understanding how to talk to restaurants, for example, like what they were experiencing and all of that. Then after that, it was time to go back to Colombia. I met my wife in Australia. We went back to Colombia. Worked over there a couple of years, and I met the current global CEO of Otter. He was the general manager for Uber Eats in Colombia, and then I got hired over there for Uber Eats as a operations manager, let's say, for different cities across Colombia. And I started again, my food tech journey in Colombia. Then I got transferred to Uber Eats in the UK, again as an operations manager for South Coast, and then I got, let's say, promoted to the retail side of the business of Uber Eats, which was getting everything ready for convenience and groceries and everything that you've seen now.
Yeah, it was a big growth period, right, of that point. When
it was crazy. And don't get me wrong, but the regulations here in the UK are incredibly
are you saying
challenging, let's say.
Are you saying there's no regulations over there?
Well, things like you cannot order like a Panadol with a combination of this and that. It was crazy, of course, understanding how to build a product based on those regulations and the legality around it, and how can you transfer, let's say, certain foods that need to go to a certain temperature, that type of thing. So it was a very interesting experience. It was a short one. It was like 4 months, and then I got in touch with Otter, and I started my journey at Otter almost like 4 years ago, more or less.
Wow. Localities are interesting, right? Because I think it's when you talk about different regions, different countries, it's always interesting with tech, because often we talk to UK-based tech and they're talking about their problems within the UK, but actually when you're really scaling and really growing, and some of the challenges that you come up against that the customers would never know, right, or appreciate, is the fact that you have to deal with those kind of barriers in different countries, especially people who work in payroll and taxes. It just must be horrific. I think in general what I've seen in all of these countries, there's a lot of similarities in terms of the challenges, for sure. I think what changes is the way that the regulation around your product or your role within that company or whatever you're trying to do has been more, let's say, intense here in the UK that I had experienced, let's say. You're welcome.
Thank you. It's always a good thing to be welcome.
Always welcome here in
but
the UK.
It is interesting because it is the right call to do, right? So it's like regulation is always one of those things that never moves at the speed of what tech is doing, right? But you need to kind of like catch up on that. It needs to be regulated. It needs to be in a good way that supports both restaurants, but also like companies in let's say, a smart way, right? So of course there's a lot of things around that's more legal teams like leading with that, but it's always but it's interesting to see how that shapes a little bit the way you move forward with some of the 100%. Products.
I think that's and I came across Otter when I was I worked at Deliverect actually for a short period, like you at Uber, but I was at Deliverect for a short period, and I remember Otter were the names on their lips at that time. They were obviously keeping an eye on you guys, watching what was going on, and competition's great for everyone. So tell us a little bit about the story of Otter and how it kind of came to be, and and then we'll get on to kind of what you do there, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great story. So we started in 2019, more or less, in the US.
It seems like a long time. Everyone says that like it's ages ago. For me, that's like yesterday.
5 years in tech is always like 25 years in other industries, so maybe that's why. But we started doing like lab testing in our sister company, which is Cloud Kitchens, right? So we were like the owners of all the tech within the facilities. And when working with those licenses, we started understanding like, hey, they're actually going through a lot of problems in terms of dealing with their ops in the space, understanding how to optimize their menu, whatever it was, right? So when we realized that, we said, okay, actually this can be expanded to brick and mortars. So how do we do that, right? So we went pretty hard, let's say, for the last 4 years, and we started expanding our presence across the globe. Right now we have more or less like 36 countries in which we are active, more than 270,000 restaurants working with us.
Wow.
We're processing billions of orders. Like we have more than 400 integrations actively in the ecosystem. So it's been a full change, let's say, in the last 5 years. That's why maybe I mentioned it felt like 25.
But that's a lot, right, in 5 years?
It's a lot. So it's a lot. And of course, throughout that period, a lot of things have changed for restaurants as well, right? So at the beginning, we were trying to give a little bit more control to the restaurants, right? So when you work in a brick and mortar or a delivery only kitchen or whatever it is, and you started going to multi-platform or whatever it was hard.
Yeah.
You know, COVID happened. You needed to do deliveries. You didn't know how to control that, right? So we started like, okay, we need to give you control. So we had certain products for that.
And that was a huge boost, right? I mean, and I know it sounds ridiculous saying that about COVID, but that the opportunity for people having to find the opportunity to gain more revenue, manage their menus, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It gave you people like you, I suppose, a really good leg up, I suppose, over that period.
Yeah, it was a bet for us, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like when I was at Uber when COVID happened, it was crazy to see.
Yeah.
All of those restaurants that said no, I don't want to wear,
Help.
Hey,
Yes.
I need you guys and
Yeah.
start working with you guys. And it was a period of we need to get all of these restaurants on
Why
board.
do you think there was fear? Because I remember when Deliveroo, I used to work at a company called Carluccio's back in, 15 years ago maybe, and Deliveroo was just starting. And I remember all the general managers, we had 100 general managers in the room, and they had a vote on whether we should use Deliveroo.
Yeah.
And I think like 80 said no, because they were petrified of it. Why do you think there was so much fear? Do you think it was around loss of control, or?
I think there was loss of control, loss of margins, not understanding how the system is going to work with deliveries, losing control of the customer experience. Like all of those things are part of the decision of whether or not you want to make that leap, right? So, I don't have all of the context of the whole like pricing scenario in the UK for years, but when you are a restaurant that fully depends on dining, and then suddenly you jump into deliveries and it becomes 30-40% of your business, then you need to rethink a little bit your strategy, right?
It's a different model.
It's a different model, right? So, and that happened with the McDonald's of the world. They started becoming more and more dependent on deliveries, which wasn't necessarily what franchisees wanted, but it happened, right? So, and when I was at Otter, like it became a real need, right? So it's kind of like, okay, I have a different menu in Deliveroo, in Uber Eats. I have this point of sale system. I really don't know how to manage dining versus deliveries.
Yeah, are they changing like fries, right? I remember my friend of mine has a dark kitchen. He has like 8 brands, and he was saying just changing fries became like a huge problem, as in had to do it in 8 places.
Yeah. So when we started thinking about it, it's kind of like, okay, there's definitely a need around this, right? So, and if you think it from the most simplest terms, like the best thing for a restaurant is to have like a synchronized menu, like everything works fine, like everything is connected across the systems, etc. So we kind of like started doing that leap and helping restaurants on that front, let's say.
Yeah, and I think, and I presume you were received really well, right? When it first kind of hit the ground.
Yeah. I mean, talking about, we went hard. Let's say, we came with a very like specific strategy in terms of going our way through the countries that we wanted to operate in. That had, of course, 2 or 3 delivery platforms active in the country. Yeah. That the aggregation made sense. We had and we still have a very like aggressive, let's say, pricing point versus our competitors, and we went a little bit late versus Delivery Act in the sense that they were 2 years before us, and they're doing a great job in terms of everything related to their product. But of course, we wanted to not just focus on a certain integration, right? So we wanted to understand what were those problems that restaurants were having and start building or co-building those solutions with the restaurants, right? So at the beginning, it was aggregation. Right, so how do we get all of those channels into one place, and how do we inject those orders into the point of sales? Kind of like trying to optimize.
It's bringing back PTSD for me.
Yeah. which is very complex in some cases. Some of the legacy systems are not really built for that.
But it's a huge problem, right? And still is. Yeah, and there's still a lot of people operating with. I've seen, there's that old photo everyone shows on LinkedIn of the guy who's got like 60 iPads and all the wires everywhere. But that is happening. I met a group of people in Birmingham in the Midlands last week, 40 operators at this hospitality network talk I was doing, and I was blown away again by the state of their tech. Not that they've got bad product or anything like that, but the integration, the management of it, the confusion over pricing, over contracts. Still, that's just 40 people, in a huge city.
And you see it at every level, right? Yeah. So you might expect that from a small hotel, independent, but suddenly you see that from super big QSRs that are still super confused with this. And just take it from a very simple example, right? So it's kind of like an order is placed, let's say, through delivery platforms, and then your restaurant is offline, or you have an item out of stock, or your order is not injected into the POS, or the courier never arrives. Like all of those things are things that are impacting restaurants daily on a regular basis, specifically during peak hours, right? Yeah. So you're losing a lot of money there. You're impacting the customer experience, right? So if I'm an Uber Eats user or a delivery user, I want to see my burger. I want to see there all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, but of course, like going multi-platform increases your user base. You're always looking for promotions. Like all of those things are ways to compete in the marketplace. And restaurants don't necessarily are looking at that in the same way they're looking at the dining space, right? So
exactly,
building those tools, which is what we wanted, was kind of like, hey, how do we actually help them really like look into their ops, into their efficiencies, into the way of growing their revenue, profitability, all of that, and build solutions to support that scalability through automation, right? So we don't necessarily need to put more hands in order to be able to do this.
Yeah.
In the UK, you've seen this, there's a lot of pressure around labor. People are leaving, people left after Brexit. There's a lot of increased prices in everything. If you're in the high street, you need to do a lot of sales in order to be able to sustain those rents.
Yeah, I think the automation. I mean, I'm a huge fan of automation, and people always freak out because they think like we're stealing jobs, but the jobs aren't there, right? And also, if you have a full team, that's great. Yeah. Redeploy that labor into another part of the business where you can be more efficient or make more money. But let the tech do the talking, right? In terms of, because it's been proven now. I think the worry about this kind of stuff coming in, but I think the automation side of things and the real benefit you can get from taking menus down into one control. I mean, the menu management alone, just that one thing, is absolutely massive.
It's massive. It's very important. It's complex.
And it's your customers that lose out as well, right? Not only you in terms of operational efficiencies, but your customer, as you say, can't get their burger, right? Just for whatever reason, it's just not there.
By consumption, you're always looking for the best photo, the best description, the best pricing, whatever it is. But the reality is that in all of these like changes that we've seen across the years, like doing a menu correctly is not necessarily that easy either, right? So you need to be able to connect the menu perfectly with the point of sale.
Yeah.
Right? You need to be able to synchronize that automatically with Deliveroo, with Uber, with whatever channel that you have. All of these channels have different structures in order to support in that menu. And then that legacy system that you might have in terms of your points of sale is not ready for deliveries, right? So all of those things create a lot of discrepancies in terms of data. It's hard to reconcile the information. You're losing sales. And restaurants kind of like feel, I'm okay. I can lose that money because I'm not ready for this omni-channel world.
It's crazy.
It shouldn't be like that, right? So you can help them.
I think someone told me the other day there's 650 POS. So I was talking to Dojo, and Dojo said they're integrated to 6, and I was just like, oh my God, why do we have 650? Who needs 650 POS? But they all must have customers, right? They must exist in some way, unless they're just fronts for money laundering or something. But they all must have customers, right?
Yeah.
So the industry's massive in that sense, and I think that we've potentially overcomplicated it with the amount of technology on offer, and sometimes that they're so. We have a marketplace there where people can fish around and look for product, right? But then when you go to a trade show, there's 28 different POS in one room together. I find it baffling, and I think it's really harder than ever for the operators to pick. So you guys it's interesting. You call yourself restaurant operating software, right? Which I think is a really great place to sit, because I actually think that's what they need. They need help to run their restaurant and operate more efficiently. Tell us what, I suppose, the real benefits are from working, with you guys, with that restaurant operating software.
Yeah. So just to give you some data points that we've seen with our partners as well. So we've seen, for example, in terms of the POS injection piece, like more or less 0.7% to 1% of orders are missed, for example. And that could happen because there's a disconnection with the menu, or the order was never accepted, or there's some fraud or whatever it is, right? So if you do 1,000 orders or 100,000 orders on a ticket value of £20, and 1% of that is just being lost on that integration failure, you're losing 20K.
Yeah.
So you can have a solid integration.
A waiter
there.
for whatever 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. So we do have very solid POS integrations. There's 99% plus injection rates there, and we looked at every step of that order, right? So between the menu efficiency rate, technical integration, but also in terms of all of the order flow there. We've also seen throughout the years that it's gonna sound like a very small number, but more or less restaurants are losing between 6 hours to 7 hours of sellable hours just because they're disconnected.
Yeah,
on a month. Yeah, and it's normal, right? So you have a super busy restaurant, you have 3 devices, you don't like working with Deliveroo or Uber, you just pause them.
Yeah.
Right. So, but you're pausing them in the incorrect time, right? So you shouldn't be paused, right? So if you look at that from an enterprise point of view, 6.5 sellable hours per month, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Should be there. And what restaurants don't necessarily understand, and it's not easy to understand, is that if you're offline in those hours, you're impacting customer experience. You're impacting your ranking within the marketplace. You're impacting the possibility of having more burgers sold than your competition within that coverage area that you have, right? So we've also helped restaurants in that sense, right? So we've built a solution which is, as soon as you're offline, we can ping you and tell you like, hey, your restaurant is offline, for example. Can we put you back online? So we can do that automatically as well. That helps restaurant managers because you don't have the capacity to be able to understand what's happening at store, around 100 stores, in order to be able to action things live.
It's really interesting going back before the world of digital, right? If you had a customer standing at the front door and you ignored them, I think we used to play a game, we used to make someone stand on the mat for 30 seconds at the front door, and if no one would speak to them, and it felt like forever, right? That's a long time to, if I just sat here now and stared at you for 30 seconds, apart from being really weird, it's quite a long time, right? But that's digitally what we're doing to people. So they're coming online, looking for their favorite burger, we'll go back to the burger example, and they can't find it because you're offline, out of stock, whatever it might be. So in seconds, they found the next one.
Yeah,
because the platform will help them do that, right?
Yeah,
and I don't think you can measure all the data you want. That's so hard for an operator to understand how much they're losing that way. And I think, and then obviously the soldiers, as I call them, like the guys on the ground, the chefs and the waiters and the servers, they will pause when they feel pressure, they'll pause it, right? Yeah. And it doesn't really fix anything. All it does is repeat the problem every day. Yeah. That same problem will happen at the same peak hour, rather than actually looking into it, understand the data, moving people around to cope with that deployment. That's where you guys come in, I think, because it's that kind of data, that understanding of when you should be on, offline, and how to avoid those kind of peaks and troughs where you're losing money is absolutely key, because as you said at the start, these guys need the money.
Yeah, exactly. And Otter is basically a global service provider of tech for restaurants that is aiming to be able to be defect-free for restaurants, right? Yeah. So when you look at it from a very simple point of view, an order is placed. Since that moment, you want a perfect synchronization of your menu, right? Yeah. So then the order is placed. You go to your own production process. That's fine, but then problems can happen there, right? So you unpack the thing correctly, or pack the order incorrectly. There's a missing item. I don't know, whatever happens there, right? So then the order is given to the courier goes and delivers. A lot of things can happen there. And then there's after that, what happens after the post-delivery. A lot of restaurants don't really look into that, right? So it's like, okay, what's delivered? Let's move on. But what we've seen as well in terms of our data and the way that we operate with our partners is it's incredible how much of, let's say more than 30% of the orders that customers complain about is not because of the fault of the restaurant. Right, so they don't have control of that.
Yeah. It's left their building, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the order was cold or it was delivered late, but they're getting impacted on their ratings and on their reviews. And the ratings and reviews are becoming very important as well within this space. Yeah. Right, so when your restaurant has a 3.8 star, do you order?
Yeah, move on to 4.5.
Yeah. On the same category now. Yeah. Maybe this one has more reviews and it's a 4.5. I think it's a better one. Maybe not. There's a lot of fake reviews around there as well, right? So, but again, you're looking for ways to help them optimize that in a sense, right? And we also have a tool for that, which is we can automate the way you reply to those reviews, automate the reply of those reviews during the specific timings, right? Really understand their data to action certain things to solve a problem, right? So if 30% of your orders are because there's a missing item or the order was incorrect or whatever it is, take an action of those stores or that specific staff manager that is working in that place. Or if 50% of the orders are called because of the courier being late, talk to the aggregators hey, what's going on? Yeah. This is not my fault and you're impacting me, let's say, in a sense, in terms of my reviews.
And I think that part of the journey, not been ignored, but has been difficult to track, right, for a long time until recently. And I think more people are getting kind of understanding that actually that last part of the last mile kind of thing is really important to get that right.
It's very important because it's impacting customer experience straight away.
Yeah, it's good.
That's the reality.
And you mentioned integrations. I've just got here. So how many integrations did you say you guys
More than 400.
400 is crazy.
Globally, yeah.
And how does that, I suppose, and you mentioned actually the way you build the integrations actually, and is that, because I think you said 99% in terms of injection. Yeah. So the seamless way of building an integration versus, I'm trying not versus the competitors, but in terms of the operators not feeling that experience, right, of having a poor integration, because a lot of the conversation we have is the integration doesn't work, or it's only, you know, it's kind of works 50% of the time or works 65%. You guys are kind of keeping them online all the time, regardless of who they're working with in terms of POS, if they're in your network.
Yeah. So I think that what differentiates us in the way that we scope and do the integrations as well is that we're just not looking into the technical injection rate of our service, right? So we're looking since the beginning of the menu synchronization availability, for example, right? So we're looking since the order has been placed to consider whether or not we're successful, right?
Yeah.
So if an order is never accepted or never placed because there was a failure in terms of our integration, it's our fault.
Yeah.
Or it's the fault of the middleware or whatever it is. Something happened there, right? So what could happen there is like the item wasn't delivered, it wasn't on the POS, whatever, or something like that. Those things, on the historical nature of point of sales, in order for you to make a menu change on the POS a while ago, it took you 6 months or more, right? So you need to go to that company. I
won't sell the POS I'm thinking of, some of them, long
you need to go to that company and tell, hey, this is the new menu. Then that company needs to go to the roadmap, whatever it is, right? So it took them a lot of time just to put one extra menu or a campaign or whatever it was, right? So with us, because we have the capability to integrate bidirectionally with these point of sale systems, you already have a menu that exists in the POS. Within Otter, you can push those menus to the different channels and you can do changes and then still inject that into the POS. Because we're looking at that from an SKU ID point of view, right? You can do whatever many changes you want to do, but it's always going to be injected. And there's an auto sync that is always happening between the systems, right? So it's kind of like, I know there's a new point, like a new item on delivery over, like I need to put it over there. Like, how do we do it? How do we synchronize these things in order to be able to avoid failures?
Can you schedule it? Can you schedule like a menu change? So
yeah.
I'm going to put on a new milkshake, but not till next Tuesday.
Yeah, but it also runs automatically every 6 hours.
Really?
Right? So
cool.
Of course, that depends. There's dependencies on the point of sale systems in order to make these things happen, right? So, and dependencies on whatever aggregator that you work with as well, right? But that's the way we actually have been able to be like really strong in terms of this, let's say, integration.
So I think that's some of the issues. I think when people started that channel and delivery channel were struggling to almost treat it like they would treat in dining or on-premise dining, and they were trying to look at, okay, how can we promote, how can we kind of use these tools to really help us build this part of the business and treat it like the rest of the business. So we can have planned promotions, we can have Mother's Day, Father's Day, but we do it digitally. Yeah. You know, so I think they were some of the barriers, but it sounds like you've got them covered, right?
It's I mean, it's so important to keep you live on your POS. It's your brain, right? Yeah. So you want it to be, it's live operations. So if something happens, we need to react fast to that, right? So, but let's say within our tech stack, like as you were saying, there's campaigns, there's promotions, there's like we have tools for all of that, right? So we have automated tools in order for you to be able to put a promotion automatically in all of the platforms instead of going buy one and whatever it is. So all of those things are, you know, what we've built throughout the years with restaurants, talking to them, understanding what they need in order to co-build what we wanted for them in terms of marketing or financial or POS injection or whatever it is, right? So it's a whole like solution that we have in place. And it actually kind of like differentiates us a little bit with competition because a point of sale integration is kind of like a commodity right now, right? Yeah. So everybody has it. Everybody needs it. Everybody potentially knows how to do it already, right?
Yes.
So it's kind of like, well, it's there. Like it's aggregation is already something that everybody needs. Okay, that's fine. But then how do you help them understand other problems that they have? And that's what we do, right? So we get very close to the restaurants, understand their data, understand what their problems are, and then tell them like, hey, we have this solution, and the impact of that solution is X. Let's implement it, right? So we work very closely with that.
I was going to say, on the restaurant side of things, like anyone listening in, they're thinking about profit. It's kind of all they think about probably. Yeah. Sorry, that's not fair. Customer service, people, profit in some kind of order. But yeah, they're concerned, obviously, about how much money they're putting to the bottom line. Can you give us any examples, I suppose, of where there's never a guarantee, right? But where there's some optimization of what you guys do? We've probably talked about it in passing so far, but just really how any kind of data that shows that we could help you put some more money to the bottom line.
Yeah. See, there's different ways of thinking about it. So from a revenue point of view, you always want to have more sales, right?
Yes.
So
that's the oxygen.
Yeah, exactly. So we of course have tools, as I was mentioning before, like keeping you online as much as possible, automatically, without the need of having somebody
online all the time. It's my
online
favorite.
all the time, always on. We call it always. You're gonna be always on.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're always on, you're gonna get more sales. You're gonna be better positioned. You're gonna have more revenue, right? So that's one solution that we have in place. In terms of let's say, expansion of your business. We also have a digital dining. Of course, it's kind of like you can build your own website for your own channel to see if you can get extra sales over there. So we also provide that. We have like Future Foods, which is another sister company that we have, which is virtual brands. So if you have, let's say, a sushi shop and you want to build poke bowls, and we have a brand that is already like selling pretty well, we can also like sell you that idea in order to be able to increase your revenue, right? So it's already integrated with Otter. So
you can bring in a separate Charlie's Chicken, stick it on the back of whatever you do, and as long as you've got the kit to do it, you can then
just do it. You get the extra revenue.
I say sell it out the back door. That sounds terrible, but you know what I mean. But put it online. So
yeah, but it's already approved brand. It works. You could potentially reduce your waste cost. Like if you have certain moments in time that you want to put it on the brands.
And do you guys share the margins around that then, in terms of, so if I took Charlie's Chicken, this is what it would look like for a cost of sale, this is what it looked like potentially in terms of revenue?
Yes. So we own the brands with the aggregators. We have a fee with them. Then there's a fee that we cover them, and then everything's there to marketing, let's say. And so we help them on that front. They just need to prepare the food and make it happen. So that's another
it's just
option.
Easy.
And then in the bottom line, of course, because there's pressure in terms of like labor, there's pressure in terms of cost of goods sold, there's a lot of things that are happening there. Of course, we're trying to build those solutions, like everything in terms of automation, in order to potentially, like, if you don't have the resources in order to invest in more people, like, hey, you can build your own automated wave of everything, right? So all of the orders are automatically going to be injected into your point of sales. We have a software solution for kiosks, so if you want kiosks as well, like which is an investment getting capital straight away, but potentially reduces the fact that you don't necessarily need more people working on
kiosk inquiries in our side becoming more and more interesting, particularly in the fact that it's not just QSR asking for them. We're seeing casual dining concepts asking for them, or understanding like what it would do for them.
Blank Street Coffee already has like kiosks around. Like it's a good way to be able to just not depend on having 13 resources or whatever it is, but optimize your labor allocation, but also use the kiosk with a good upsell, functionalities and stuff in order to be able to compensate a little bit of that, things that the labor people or like the people don't necessarily do at the time, right? So, for example, somebody goes to the cash register, I want a coffee and a bagel. Okay, that's great. I'll put it in the POS and then you're gone.
Yeah.
Kiosks, because it's already kind of like optimized in order to be able to increase the, ticket value or whatever it is, or optimize the queues that you might have, give you a better potential way of reducing a little bit the cost of people, but also increasing their revenue.
Yeah, the average basket value on a kiosk is insane. I've been looking at a few different case studies on them, and I can't find one that doesn't add on. I can't remember, I'm not going to quote the percentage, I'll get it wrong, but it's really interesting in terms of what it can do for them. And again, using that labor somewhere else, right? Just taking that person that would have been that human that was doing that and putting them somewhere else and having them invest in the business. But and what about reporting? Because there's obviously there's a lot of stuff there's a lot of stuff in terms of what the product can do, but understanding what it's doing and being able to kind of track what's happened and then kind of repeat it if it was great, or not do it again if it wasn't great. Do you have a strong suite of analytics and reporting that the guys can use?
Yeah, 100%. I think we're the strongest there. If I want to put myself out there,
he's made a statement there.
Let's not edit that part. But we spent several years really trying to normalize and standardize data from every platform that you might have.
Because you get a lot of data, don't you?
That's a big job.
Yeah.
The data is not universal. It's very different across the delivery platforms. They have different data points. They call them differently. It's
just to make your life hard.
It's very hard. It's very hard, right? So if you're an independent restaurant or a super big QSR, they both have different ways of integrating those data points, etc. So it's clear that they're struggling with that, right?
Yeah.
So you cannot make decisions on time. Right, so you always look at the data outdated, or you see the data aggregated.
It needs to be simple, right? It depends who you are. Again, if you're a small business, I don't want a 15-page, download CSV
of an invoice.
When am I going to look at it?
Yeah.
So but,
it's pretty rough for SMBs that don't necessarily have access to potentially a better treatment from delivery platforms, right? So we spend a lot of time there. So we built our mission control and our business manager, which is already a unified source of information for you in terms of everything of your business, right? So sales, operational metrics, cancellations, rejections, financial payouts, taxes, everything is there. Of course, that depends on the availability of the data that we can get from the integrations that we have in place, but everything helps you to really make informed decisions almost live in terms of what you have, right? So that really helps operations managers or store managers or general management in order to be able to understand your business faster, right? So You can filter by different regions, different aggregators, whatever.
Especially if you're enterprise, right? When you want to drill down to that detail from a board level, or even down to area and general manager level, I think being able to access that kind of data is key, because, as you say, it's data is king, and trying to make decisions sometimes without that becomes really, it's your gut, isn't it? And that's not always the best measure.
If you want to avoid the small losses that I was mentioning before, you need to data, right? You need to have the data, and we have built things like scheduled reports, as we were mentioning just now, which is like the ability for them to create their own type of reporting, send it straight away immediately with whatever frequency do they want to their staff managers, and then they can use that to talk to their people, right? So all of those functionalities, again, have been co-built with restaurants, which is hey, every Friday or every Monday I sit down with my staff, we go through acceptance rate, cancellations, ticket value, whatever it is, and we need to make our plan for their week.
So valuable. I think the reporting side often get the two things that reporting and support are the two things that I think that tech, not you, general conversation, but that's the two things I hear a lot from the operator community. They're the two things that they really want. They want the reporting to be accurate and slick and fast and relevant, and they want the support to be always on, as you call it.
That's absolutely right, and there's a lot of data around. It's not a lack of data.
There's too much. Data waterboarding. It's horrible, right? It's just how much you need.
There's just people don't know what to do with that, right? So you have different personas that need different data points, right? So a franchisee, for example, they're operators. They're full, really strong operators.
Yeah.
They don't care if they sold another Big Mac. You know what I mean? It's kind of like they're trying to understand more the courier side of things, for example. It's like, what's happening over there?
Well, they're looking for efficiencies, aren't they? They're looking for a statewide advantages to go and pull levers.
Versus another brand that is super active on marketing, for example. Yeah. And if they're not good in terms of their ops metrics, aggregators won't necessarily give them the option to market more, right? So you need to be constantly looking in terms of what Deliveroo, Uber, and Just Eat are saying in terms of if you want to be a good operator for us, you need to have all of these up metrics at this level, right? So we're helping all of these restaurants to get to that level, right? So that they can compete on the marketplace, right?
Because it's another podcast, but that bit alone, right? What the algorithms and the way that the marketing triggers work and everything with the aggregators is also really complex, right? And having the time to pick that apart and understand that is a project on its own, right?
Yeah, and it always changes. I mean, there's different weightings of the variables, but there's a lot of variables in that, but I don't know if you've seen recently, if you go to Deliveroo, Uber, or Just Eat, but it's harder and harder it's harder and harder for restaurants to really be at the top.
Yeah.
There's a lot of banners going around, there's sponsored ads, and then you actually get to the list, and then potentially your restaurant is there. So it's crazy. But going back to the reporting piece, other things that we've seen which are quite impactful for restaurants is financial reconciliation, for example, right? So it's one of those big topics that what do we do here, with the sense that every time that we try to consolidate our information between delivery platforms, our point of sale, our bank account, there's always discrepancies.
I used to spend, so I was a smaller casual dining chain on the board there before I started this stuff. We had 14 sites, but our delivery was something like 35% of our business. It was really big.
Yeah.
And me and the FD, I think we started monthly, then it became weekly, then it became daily. Literally trying to configure where the hell our money was going, where the missed orders went, or the failed orders. Where it was just honestly, it never matched. And it became. I think this is why I found out about you actually, because I was looking. It was 2019, and we were looking for an option to help. Fix that problem, because it was two senior people, right, spending probably 20 hours a week on it, which is crazy.
It's absolutely insane, to be honest, and
not 20 hours a week at the desk, 20 hours a week around the whole ecosystem of delivery, trying to work out where the hell's our money gone.
Because they have different taxes, they have different ways of showing adjustments, they have different ways of showing marketing. Some pay daily,
some pay weekly, some.
So there's even cases that we've seen across the board where you close your month, and then 30 something plus days, there's always adjustments that happen on the previous month, right? So
it's an issue.
Right? So
is it still an issue now? Then is that still
100%?
Yeah.
And with
probably worse,
multi-location brands, it's even worse, right? So we're building that already. We already have some customers in place to really understand how do we help them really optimize that flow of information, so that they understand what's being discounted at what time. What's the difference between your gross sales versus net sales at the end of the... But there's a lot of information there.
What about refunds? Because that's one of the big...
It's part of that as well, right? So, you have gross sales and refunds, discounts, advertising, chargebacks, whatever it is, like all of those things, marketing spend, all of those things happen after the fact. In some cases, right?
I can't see any restaurant saying to you, "I don't want that," because I just think it's such a pain to do yourself.
Yeah.
Depending on the size of the business, obviously, if you want to employ 5 finance people to chase delivery around, then good for you. But I imagine just to have something automated that would help you at least manage that 80-90% of it would be really useful.
I think the biggest blocker that we've seen is that restaurants work with a certain point of sale system, and then there's not the most updated point of sale systems, and they don't have enough.
Do you find
data.
that more in the SMB kind of type?
Yeah,
because the bigger guys are all zonal toast, Lightspeed, pick one.
Yeah. Some of them are more cloud based, which is a little bit easier. Some of them are very legacy. It's not that easy to operate with them, and they have thousands of modules of different things, etc. But
I was in a meeting yesterday with an operator, and I laughed because they said they had this POS, and it's actually I should play POS bingo, because I literally he said to me, I think it was called Gardiff. Have you heard of that?
A point of sale system?
Yeah.
No.
See, so he said, oh, we use Gardiff, and I looked at my abstract, and I was like, and we were both Googling, going, how do we not know that one? Every time I go on a call, there's a bloody new one I don't know. And basically they supply all the kit, put it all in for them, then take it away again. They're like a pop-up.
Okay.
And I was just like, insane.
I think most of them are built for dining.
Yeah.
They want to make a good experience for the restaurants and dining, like table numbers and all of that. But the delivery side of things, they have kind of like left it apart. Right, so and there's complexities. What we were talking about, financial reconciliation of that. There's complexity because the data points that we get from delivery platforms are completely different from the dining. Right, so we kind of like started as well, mostly in the US. We have our own POS solution as well, right? So which is built for
651.
But it's already like natively integrated with the channels. It's an omni-channel POS. Like it's already built for delivery.
So you're almost built the other way, right? You're built from the delivery experience, but are doing POS. And I imagine the restaurant, without being rude to POS people, managing on-premise is a lot easier than managing off-premise in terms of the way like you just talked about the data points.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes there, but it's an interesting kind of like different complementarity of what we've seen in terms of the POS world, because they want the dining, the high quality dining experience, and like Lightspeed is pretty good at that, for example. So all of those things are happening, but no one was looking into the other side. So we have spent the last 5 years understanding delivery. So how do we actually put it in a place where it's actually already
very interesting,
omni-channel integrated?
I will watch this space. Coming soon.
but it's there's different solutions to that. There's different ICPs for that. In general, like big brands still work with these big legacy point of sale systems, and would they change them? I don't know. They're looking into that maybe. Right?
Triggering change in POS is you could literally run a scientific experiment on it. I think, because I actually think people are planning a lot more to look at tech, as it's becoming 50% of the business, right, in terms of where it appears. But I think POS is caused by a reaction normally. There's something that's gone wrong somewhere that's unretrievable in terms of relationship. That's the only, unless they're in mad growth and they want to get something brand new and change it. But I find it really interesting. I wish I could tell you why people choose to change POS when they do, because there must be rhyme and reason behind it. But for me, I changed it once. Literally, someone rang me the day I had enough, and a sales guy phoned me, literally got me on that day, and he won. He must do his lucky day, right? And I think there's a lot of that happens when people are just having a bad time, but no time really to kind of go and impact it and change it. So they just need time to, I suppose, listen to people like you, kind of tune in sometimes to some of the content and really understand what's going on, and then just think, right, have I got the right solution? Can I deal with the off-premise properly with what I've got? And the delivery side of things with what I've got, and if not, what do I do next? And I think there's a big gap there. There's a huge. The thing I was doing with the Birmingham guys last week was change management. It was all about, when do we change? What are the risks of doing it? What are the opportunities if you do it, and how long does it take? And there is no one fit all answer, unfortunately. But they're all, I think they're all engaged. That this room is engaged and super keen. But the time issue was across all of them. How do I do it?
It's an interesting, what we've seen in the industry is like they're pretty eager to try and innovate, right? So that they know there's an opportunity there.
Us hospitalitarians, we're big innovators. There's
always like, we don't have enough budget to do this transformation right now. But the reality is that restaurants need to stop feeling okay with the small losses of not operating with the good technology, right? So it's kind of like, you need to change. That change is going to require some investment, and that investment is going to recover
and
potentially.
You look
easily.
at best in class, right? You look at the stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Look at some of the people who are doing great stuff with tech, who've got really great slick operations that you love visiting and that you love engaging with, and think you can have that.
Yeah.
Like I always say this phrase, like small business can have enterprise type tech if they want it.
For sure.
They just have to do it.
I think they're just thinking it like a very disconnected way. Also, like enterprise brands, like, we want to go for customer loyalty, customer experience, and all of this. And that's great. But then when you start looking into that, it's all interconnected as well with your point of sale system, but it's also interconnected with your own channels.
Because do you leave out the delivery guys?
Yeah, and then it starts connected on the back with the data warehouses they might have. Yeah. So it's not necessarily that easy to understand for these super big brands, but they need to go through that transformation. And they're kind of like looking into ways how to become more omnichannel, but in a good way, and try to invest there and really like understand like what is the implication of this for the business.
100%. Right? And one of the things we're promoting is this single source of truth in those businesses. So a human who works in those businesses where... and they have it in a few Honest Burger. I'm trying to JKS these guys. I'm talking about them all the time. But head of project roles where they deal solely with you guys. Yeah. They just work with you guys, and once you're in a relationship with them, you keep talking, and they build projects around that. I think a lot of the problems over the years have come when there's no CTO, or there's maybe a CFO ends up dealing with it, or an ops director, and it's not their skill point, and it's not their day job, right? Their day job is to run operations, but they have to start dealing with that, and it becomes a heavy weight on the shoulders. So we're really encouraging people to kind of go down that route and trying to find these single source of truths who work in the businesses who get really super educated on tech and can really help you guys then sell in as well, because there's a lot less wasted time, because you'll actually speak to someone who's engaged, understands what you're trying to do, and can make a good decision with you fairly quickly in terms of a yes or no, and then work out what the rollout looks like. So we're on your side. We're trying our best. But how do people get hold of you? So if they've heard your dulcet tones today, when do they reach out to you?
So we have our website for sure, which is tryotter.com. So they can go and see all of the solutions over there. Of course, we talk with a lot of restaurants. So if you already know a restaurant that works with Otter, have a chat with them and see if there's a way we can get in touch. We work with different brands. From a QSR point of view, I think from 17, 18 out of the 30 QSR big brands globally. So, we're there. We right now don't have let's say like a outbound sales team, like fully calling restaurants. We don't have that at the moment. So it's mostly about the inbound that might come from that. But again, just follow us on LinkedIn as well, or like, give us a shout if you want.
And they'll reach out to you.
They can reach out to me directly for sure. Felipe Diaz Sampa. But I think like we have a team in place. Yeah, we're focusing a little bit more on bigger brands. But I think in general, people already know about us, right? So we haven't been super active, let's say, in terms of events and all of that. Yeah. But we made that call, and it's kind of like protecting our business as well and growing, let's say, in a solid way.
These bloody trade shows are expensive. I didn't ask why Otter. What's the name behind? Do you know why?
I don't know the answer to that one. I think it was there's some.
Trust me, to pick one right at the end, you don't know.
Something like that, but
I'll take that one out.
I'll give you the answer to that one.
All right, look, lovely to meet you, Felipe.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you for coming in, and you can reach out to him on LinkedIn, or was it tryotter.com?
Tryotter.com.
Tryotter.com. Perfect.
Yeah, .uk as well for the UK business.
Have a great day, my friend.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.